Hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from around the globe. My name is Christina Leano, and I'm with the Global Catholic Climate Movement, and I'm quite pleased to welcome you to our webinar on Mercy to Earth. We have a wonderful panel of speakers that will be sharing with you, and we hope that this will be enriching and informative as together we enter this journey of bringing mercy to earth. So to begin, I wanted to start with an opening prayer, which is a prayer that actually comes from the message that we're focusing on during this Mercy to Earth campaign, the Show Mercy to Our Common Home. So as we begin this webinar, I just invite you to remember that we're in the presence of a loving and merciful God, particularly during this time of Lent. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, who are so precious in your eyes. God of love, show us our place in this world as channels of your love for all the creatures of this earth. God of mercy, may we receive your forgiveness and convey your mercy throughout our common home. Praise be to you. Amen. So our agenda for this time together is I'll begin by just sharing a little background about this Mercy to Earth campaign that we've launched as part of the Global Catholic Climate Movement. And then we'll get a chance to hear from Sister Denise Boyle, who is with Mercy Global Action, about the actual message of Pope Francis of Show Mercy to Our Common Home. Then we're very blessed to have Sara Nelson, who woke up early in California, to share about this amazing work that they've been doing of greening their diocese of Monterey. So she'll be talking a little bit about what they've been doing and just things that each of us might be able to do to help our church along in transitioning to clean energy. And then last, Jason Miller of the Franciscan Action Network is going to talk about the People's Climate March. This is specific to the United States, but there are other mobilizations happening around the same time, so it will be applicable to hopefully all of us. And then last, we'll have some space and time for any questions and answers. And also, if you're already planning to do something during the Mercy to Earth weekend, it would be great to share that as well, just to inspire all of us about what you're planning to do. So just to begin of what's the background of this Mercy to Earth campaign, I want to start that last September 1st, 2016, as part of the World Day of Prayer for the Care of Creation, Pope Francis released this very powerful message, which Sister Denise will be sharing more about, which is called Show Mercy for Our Common Home. And it's pretty short. I recommend all of you to read it. But what was really incredible about the message is that he enshrined through that message care for our common home as a work of mercy. So we all know the traditional works of mercy of feeding the hungry or clothing the naked. And I think we all know that those are part of our Christian vocation. And then suddenly Pope Francis expanded that to include actually ecological concerns and taking care of our planet Earth and its inhabitants. So that was pretty fantastic. So we remembered that moment, it's September 1st. And then looking ahead, we noticed that Earth Day, April 22nd, is the same weekend as Mercy Sunday, which is April 23rd. So we thought, given that coincidence, wouldn't it be nice to revisit and re-amplify this message of Pope Francis around bringing mercy to our common home? And so the journey that we've created has two moments. One is during Lent, which for all of us in the church is a time of preparation. If you read Pope Francis's message, you'll notice there's a strong component of doing an examination of conscience, of really reflecting on the ways that we've all contributed to environmental and social degradation. And so we thought it would be good during Lent, as we always do, is just to reflect on the ways that perhaps we've missed the mark in our Christian vocation. Where are the ways that we've fallen short? So during Lent, we traditionally are invited to pray, fast, and give. And so what we're inviting all of us to do is to pray by conducting an examination of conscience, but this time bringing in issues of ecological concerns. So we've developed a Mercy to Earth examen based on the Pope's September 1st message. We're also inviting people to fast. So for those of you who have been with us for the last couple of years, you know we've always done a Lenten fast for climate justice. Normally during Lent, each day a different country is fasting, but given the Mercy to Earth campaign, we thought we'd focus on just one day, which is March 22nd, World Water Day. So on this day, we're inviting all of our community to fast as a sign of repentance, as a sign of commitment, and as a sign, of course, to encourage all of our community, our global leaders, our church, to really take bold action on climate justice. And then the third traditional practice during Lent is to give. So often we think about giving alms, but what we're inviting you to do is to actually give of your time, which sometimes can be a little bit more precious, to prepare for Mercy to Earth weekend. So this is the beginning of the journey, Lent, and to pray, fast, and give. And then the second part of the journey is to take action. Of course, we have Easter, which is the very crux of the Triduum, the crux of our faith, the celebration of Jesus' death and resurrection. And then the following week, we have Mercy to Earth weekend. As I mentioned earlier, April 22nd is Earth Day, and then April 23rd is Mercy Sunday. So what we're inviting people to do is to help us to celebrate Mercy to Earth weekend and the days following by committing to doing acts of mercy for our common home. And I'm just going to briefly mention what are the acts that we're suggesting, and then you'll get to hear a little bit more in detail from our speakers about those acts of mercy. So the first act is we're inviting you to join a mobilization. Our political climate is such that we have quite a number of mobilizations happening right now. On April 22nd, Earth Day, there's actually a March for Science that's happening. The big one is in Washington, D.C., but they're also happening around the globe. Just a celebration and the importance of science and how it should guide our policies and our lives. It's something to be taken seriously. On April 29th is the People's Climate March, which Jason Miller will be talking about. It's happening mostly in DC, but also in other parts of the United States. And we at the Global Catholic Climate Movement are working hard to bring Catholics to that march. And then the third mobilization is a little bit after Mercy to Earth weekend, but also important. It's a global divestment mobilization. So this is in collaboration with 350.org and other groups, but we'll be joining some of their actions, particularly organizing another joint announcement of Catholic institutions that have agreed to divest. So that's the first act of mercy, to join a mobilization. The second is to encourage your parish or community to go renewable and support the transition to clean energy. Some of you know that we developed an eco-parish guide last year, or a year and a half ago, which has some pretty concrete ideas of ways you can do that. Sara Nelson will also be sharing quite a bit about ways you can do that and examples from her own diocese. But what we're encouraging for Mercy to Earth weekend is, we know it's 6 weeks away. There's only so much you can do. But what we're inviting people to do is at least to take the first step. Right? So that could mean bringing together a committee during that weekend or around those days just to have the conversation. It might mean scheduling an appointment with your pastor to see what are the possibilities. Or it might mean doing an energy audit. just to take one step in the process, in the journey of moving to renewables. And we'll be sharing throughout the next weeks other ideas of things you can do just to get the ball rolling. The third act of mercy we're inviting you to do is to start a green team or a Care for Creation team. Now, many of our partners around the globe already have programs in place. For instance, the Catholic Climate Covenant in the United States has Care Creation teams. So there's models out there that you can already plug into. And so just like with the previous act of mercy, we don't expect people to have a full-blown Care Creation team, but we want to just get the ball moving, to use this weekend to motivate and inspire yourself and others, just to begin to gather others in starting a community that can help push green practices in your parish. The fourth act of mercy you might consider doing is hosting an event or a workshop on caring for a common home, and there's lots of resources out there on ways you can do that. The Earth Day Network, their focus this year is on earth literacy, so they have programs that you can use, and we have some of those on our website. And then the last thing is to incorporate Mercy to Earth into your Sunday liturgy or host a prayer service. And on our website, we have some examples of ways you can incorporate Mercy to Earth themes into your Mass and other prayer services. So at that, I think what I'll do is I'm going to stop and invite our first speaker, Sister Denise Boyle, to share. And I just want to share a little bit about her. So Denise is from Dublin, Ireland, and is a Franciscan missionary sister. She has a background in secondary and adult education and has worked in Australia, Zimbabwe, the UK, Ireland, and Geneva. And since 1992, Denise has been working full-time in the area of human rights, with a particular interest in advocacy on women and children's rights. So right now, Denise is working on an anti-trafficking campaign with the Mercy Sisters of Ireland. And plus, she recently took over coordination of the Mercy Sisters Global Justice Program. So with that, Denise, I invite you to please break open this powerful message of Pope Francis. We welcome you. I think you're still muted.
Greetings, everybody. It's a privilege to be part of this webinar. I'd like to just, as Christina said, break open this wonderful message of Pope Francis on September the 1st last year, and through a short PowerPoint presentation. So I'd just like to go into that now, Christina. So what will I do?
Just go ahead and share your screen and then pick the PowerPoint.
All right, okay.
Perfect, great.
Great, okay. This was a beautiful collage that Anne Walsh, who's the editor of the Mercy International e-News, put together. And I think it captures in a beautiful way that probably the kernel of this message of Pope Francis introducing the 8th work of mercy. And it's in terms of have mercy and show mercy to our common home. It's another call, really it's almost an appendix to Laudate Si. So many of the same themes run through this. It's a crisp, short message, but nonetheless very powerful. So Pope Francis, we're aware of the reality of the critical point in literally in our world, and specifically the gift of the created world is under serious threat. So Pope Francis actually says that the object of mercy is human life itself and everything it embraces. And this is our growing awareness. For so long, we saw ourselves as in charge with complete control. And now we realize that it has to be a harmonious relationship. And so Francis said, to emphasize this, it also has to include care of our common home. This is the 8th work of mercy. It was very original and very powerful. So why? Because that echo from Laudate Si, section 49, we have to hear both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. And what Francis is at pains to mention all the time is that the two are inextricably linked. We can't deal with one without dealing with the other. And of course, we know where there's any exploitation and devastation of the earth's precious resources, it is the most vulnerable and the poor who suffer. So, to save our common home, we're all aware, and Pope Francis speaks in those terms, it's a slow, steady work, and it entails social and the environment. And it's critical. The earth is crying out. A very simple example, bottled water. We know that it takes between 450 to 1,000 years for a plastic bottle to biodegrade. And yet how many of us, not even thinking, will pick up a bottle of plastic water? I try when I'm in Ireland, and I brought my glass bottle here as well, just to keep refilling it. And I know many of us get a good plastic bottle and we keep refilling that. But such a simple thing as refusing to buy bottled water, and maybe plastic bottles of soda too, could make such a difference. It's tragic when we see a beautiful dolphin or a seal dying in agony because they've swallowed plastic that's been thrown into the sea. So we're all aware of these things, and Francis is highlighting it again for us. So very briefly, the overview of this message is it's sections rather than, I'd say, chapters, because they're very short, very readable. Section 2 is we have sinned. Now in Laudate Si, as we know, Francis very strongly introduced the concept of sin in terms of exploitation of the earth. I know when we were studying that in our parish, a number of people sort of said, sin? No, sin is about people. So we're growing in awareness that anything that's gift, that we abuse in any way, is harming others. So there's the, the social sin. It calls for us to examine our own consciences with a view to repentance in section 3. And of course, then that calls for action. And that's what section 4 deals with. 5 then is the new work of mercy, highlighting and integrating right into the center of our teaching, and that care for our common home is a work of mercy. And the concluding prayer, and I've adapted that at the end, that maybe we'll say it again, just as we started with it. So, our common home then. Cardinal Peter Turkson, when he introduced the Pope's message on September the 1st last year, actually condensed it to 3 points. Show mercy, repent for sins against creation, and conversion. Very simple, but not easy. And this photo is very powerful. Our earth is so fragile, so vulnerable, and I can do something about it. And that's the recurring message. What can I do? It's so easy to point fingers at others, but and especially during this time of Lent, it's called personal conversion. And it just highlights again, as we know, the interdependence of the various aspects. How precious is the gift of water, sister water. Biodiversity, we're losing thousands of precious gifts of creation through the exploitation to date, and unless we take serious collective action, there's the risk of us losing more. Then it's the exploitation of resources, and Francis, as in Laudate Si, is very strong that where profit becomes more important than people or nature, then we're on a collision course towards disaster. And that disaster is the global warming. And a consequence of that, again, he comes back to the poor and the vulnerable, are the refugees. So many, because of exploitation of resources, but also because of climate change. And we know, of course, conflict, are moving in their millions, literally. And the call, what about our children and grandchildren and future generations? And so Francis, as we know, was very significant behind-the-scenes player, both at the UN in terms of the SDG agenda, but then very excitingly, December 2015, the signing of the Paris Climate Agreement. But that has to be with our constant monitoring and pressure on our governments, because it's so easy to sign in the heat of the moment and a wonderful rah-rah, but is it actually being implemented? So what we're dealing here is a moral and a spiritual crisis. It's systemic injustice. And just this week, on Monday, very powerful Luke, chapter 6, 36 to 38. Jesus said to his disciples, "Be merciful just as your Father is merciful. Don't be a judge of others, and you'll not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven." It's so easy, isn't it, for all of us? It's other people's problems. So conscious that sin is part of the systemic injustice. So it was Christine Kaya from the Ignatian Solidarity who actually, these thoughts, I took them from because they really, for me, dovetailed into my preparation on this message of Francis. She speaks of the webs of push and pull of migrants across borders, the degradation of the planet. I put in, she had poverty, but the violence that's associated with poverty. And can I say, I have clean hands in terms of all of this. We're all complicit in injustice. Christine speaks of the haze of indifference, or the protective armor of self-righteousness, the message of the Pharisees and the scribes. And again, for self-defense, we look at others rather than ourselves. So we come then to the point of conversion, softening our hearts, and that allows change to happen. So that's a theme, of course, that we know Pope Francis through all his writings and his speeches, and the conversion of our hearts and the change. So we come back to the suffering of the poor and devastation of our earth needs a timely response, and that's now. It can't be tomorrow, each of us now. And conscious of that integration of human and the creation, so many of these in terms of respect, in terms of responsibility, and the elimination of conflict, all of these injustice can destroy our creation or in turn build it. And so action. And when we change it from we to I think it takes a stronger force. Can I be a steward of creation? It's in many small ways. It's not the big, dramatic, rather the consistent day by day. Do I appreciate and thank God for Sister Water, Mother Earth, Brother Sun? What do I do to protect creation? Will I commit to do so? And to tread gently. How am I using resources? Electricity, diesel, petrol, and water. Am I prepared to change, and how? And I always think in these sort of situations, if I could just make decide one action in the light of this, then I'm more likely to do it. Now, the response, the message too, called in gratitude to the Orthodox brothers and sisters who have always had that sensitivity for creation and whom are joining on September the 1st. But Francis got buy-in internationally from all leaders, which is tremendous. Our call is at grassroots. What can we do? And one of the ways is to cherish our world. And he comes back again to the tragedy of the loss of biodiversity. Over in Europe, we have a huge campaign against some of the big multinationals and pesticides, which risk destroying the bee. And I think this simple, beautiful creature of God, if that's eliminated, the harm it's going to do to our world. And we've got the majestic tiger. And instead, if we can work together, then our world, our common home, becomes a place of sharing and communion. And beautifully, Francis speaks about the time to contemplate the wonder and the beauty. And actually says, when we're free of clutter, you know, we have the decluttering concept through our society, which is excellent. But when we're free in simplicity and time, we can contemplate this gift. The UN SD Agenda, Sustainable Development Agenda, is a critical part of our global response. And the cry of that is to leave no one behind. As we know, the SDGs, the 17 with 169 targets, replace the Millennium Development Goals. What's different about this is it's global, it's every country. But Francis calls on the developed world, if you like, or the richer world, to help those countries that have been exploited to ensure that they too can be part of this climate change movement and helped in their resources to go for sustainable energy and thus sustainable development. So he's very strong on the fact that there's an ecological debt to those emerging countries, or that we sometimes say the global north and the southern and the south, which is poorer because of exploitation in so many ways. And so we come to the prayer, the final prayer that wraps up this beautiful, powerful message. As Christina said at the beginning, it's such a short message, but so rich, and really does need to be read in conjunction with Laudate Si. So maybe we could finish, or Christina, if you prefer, we could say this right at the end of the webinar. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, we can return to it again at the end of the webinar. But thank you so much, Sister Denise, just to help to convey the significance of this small but powerful message. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Great. So I think you might have to stop your sharing the screen. And while you do that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. Let me pull this up, who is Sara Nelson, who is currently the Executive Director of the Romero Institute. So we're very blessed to have Sara with us, who has 4 decades of experience as the Executive Director of some of the nation's most effective public interest research, grassroots organizing, and law and policy organizations. So as I mentioned, she's currently the Executive Director of the Romero Institute in Santa Cruz, California, which is a law and policy center founded in 1980 and is focused on exposing and implementing solutions to structural injustice, human rights, and constitutional violations, and serious threats to the environment. And Sara is also a member of the steering committee for the Global Catholic Climate Movement. So we're very happy to welcome you, Sara, as you can share ways that we also might green our parish and our communities by telling your example of what you've been doing in the Diocese of Monterey. So welcome, Sara.
Thank you, Christina. Can you see me and hear me? Yes. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to share what's happening in Monterey, in the Diocese of Monterey. We're having some wonderful success that I think gives us all more hope that together we can all address this incredible challenge that Pope Francis has illuminated for us in his Laudato Si encyclical. First, I want to say a couple things that are very serious, because the way I have always organized with other people is that first we have to understand the problem. And if we understand the problem really as it is, as best we can, then we, first of all, are more motivated to address it because we understand it. But secondly, it's easier to find the solution that will be most effective. So we were inspired by Pope Francis when his encyclical came out, and we realized we had to take action. So first we raised some money in 2015, and then we started research in the January of 2016. The son of our deacon had just graduated with a PhD in environmental science. We asked him to join us, and he began research. And by March, it was very clear to us how serious the problem of climate change and its impacts are, and how fast they're coming, and how much more fast they're coming than originally predicted. So what I want to say now is serious, but when our GCCM steering committee was in Rome, we went to a day-long divest from fossil fuels and invest in renewables or other clean investments. It was a very important conference, a lot of really knowledgeable people there. And one woman is Christina Figueras. She is the most knowledgeable person at the UN about climate change and what it means in terms of its impacts and schedules. And she told us that day that the turning point was no longer the end of this century or the middle of this century, but was 2020, which gives us 3 years to do something dramatic, to begin to turn the ship around, so to speak, so that it's not moving rapidly towards what is called the cascading effect, where things can spin out of control and be very difficult to turn around in terms of the size of the storms, the sea rising, the size of the impacts, the droughts, etc. So this was very sobering. I mean, to everyone in the room, that's not very much time. And however, what I want to say is, if we realize that there are millions, billions of people on the planet, and if a significant percentage of all of us take action locally, nationally if we can, but if we can't, locally, if we think globally and act locally, and we all do it together, it will be a huge impact between now and 2020. So I'm so appreciative that GCCM is doing webinars. This is not the first one, because we need educational materials to help all of us figure out how we can participate and be part of the solution. So now I'm going to what's happening here in Monterey. We have 2 fronts of action that we are working on with our own staff, and also volunteers and leaders in the diocese. And we've been building the team of people that we all work together to do this. There are 2 fronts. The first one is we formed a partnership with the diocese. We went to our deacon in our church, Patrick Conway. We began meeting with him. We said, look, this is a very serious problem. We've got to begin the process of greening our entire diocese and every parish in it, because that will significantly reduce emissions in our 3 counties. Our diocese has 4 counties. We're focusing on 3 at the moment, and then we will move to the 4th. And he agreed, and so he began helping us figure out what the steps would be for us to develop a partnership with the diocese. And then we went and we began working with 2 deacons who worked directly with the bishop, one in finance, one in justice. And then we met with the bishop, and we presented the summary of Laudato Si, the summary of the problem, our willingness to work. as a team, to be like a technical team that would work with the diocese to help them go green. And he was very responsive and he said, we all want to implement Laudato Si, but we don't all know what to do. So he was very grateful that we came to him prepared to do the work and to work with his deacons and everyone in the diocese to make this happen. And this is a point I'd like to make for all of you who are, wherever you are. We have found over and over again that the priests are sometimes so busy, they have so much responsibility in the parish that they have said things to us like, look, if you want to do something to green the parish, if you want to start a green team, and if you want to educate people and you want to get people to take action, come to me and ask me to bless your efforts. But don't ask me to be the one that does it, because I'm already overloaded. And so that's very encouraging, because it's in the spirit of Vatican II, which said the lay people have to be much more active and have to be much more given the go-ahead to bring all their talent and skills to the fore, to move the agenda of the church forward. So that's what we were doing. He was very responsive, and we began the work together. The first thing that we asked him to do was to send a letter to all of our 46 parishes particularly the 3-county area, and introduce the Romero Institute, and tell people that we would be coming to visit them, and he would encourage them to sit and meet with us and learn about climate change and Laudato Si and what we could do together. So he did that, which meant we were able to begin going to all of the parishes. I mean, first we set up meetings, and then we went to everyone, and we had a team that would explain everything and ask them to come to a launch, which was in July. It was July 17th, and they were all invited to come together and spend a morning and an afternoon together, looking at the entire problem and beginning to get trained in how to address the solutions. So that happened, and on July 17th, we had over 200 people. They were not only from our parishes, but from the interfaith community came as well. And we all got together, and there were a series of inspirational presentations, including a rabbi who spoke about how her temple had already gone solar, and how happy everybody was with their ongoing greening efforts. We also had a Buddhist who is a national climate scientist, who talked about how he came to the conclusion after decades of climate scientist work, that unless we address this as a moral issue, we were going to be in real trouble, because by looking at it as a moral issue, it broadens out the number of people who can begin to think about this and address it. Because we have 1.2 billion Catholics in the world. We have 4 billion Muslims. We have millions and millions of Protestants, and we have Buddhists, and we have Hindus. We have a lot of people of faith. And all people of faith understand that we did not create creation, that this is not something we created and that we have the right to destroy. So there is a way of holding this issue that's different than the way that the more secular academic world has been holding it. And so he began to address it himself, began to make presentations from his Buddhist point of view, less so much so from his scientific. And so there were a range of people. We had someone from the Catholic Climate Covenant who was one of their ambassadors, and she gave a PowerPoint. and that explained about Laudato Si and the challenges we all face. So we did that kind of opening that went on for a couple hours. And then we had a 3-hour sort of training session where several people gave presentations on what we could actually do to green not only our entire diocese, but our 3 counties in terms of the power program and the power that is delivered to all the consumers in our 3 counties by the electrical company. So those were the 2 that what we decided is California is the 2nd biggest emitter in the United States. The United States is the 2nd biggest emitter in the world, following only China. And that the way we could care for the earth and care for creation, and the way we could do the most for the poor in the world who are being impacted would be to bring down emissions, because the United States is a big emitter. And so that's our job. I think that, I mean, when we had our steering committee, we realized that our African youth representative said, you know, in Africa, we probably need to be focusing on adaptation because we're already being seriously affected by the impact of climate change and the negative impacts. And we need to figure out how to adapt better to the droughts and all that. We also had Cardinal Rabat, who is the cardinal for Oceania in the Pacific, which has a lot of islands. And he was with us for 4 days of our steering committee because he said, I have all these people coming to me whose islands are being covered up with water because of sea rise. And I don't know what to tell them. I don't know how to help them. And so I'm here in your meeting to try to learn about this. So my point is that in different areas of the world, the solutions might be different than ours. We are focusing on lowering emissions because we know that that's our biggest responsibility here in the States. But it might be that the program that you would put together for Mercy to Earth Weekend would have more of an emphasis on how to, as island nations, how are we going to migrate off of our islands? Because it is unlikely at this stage that they're not going to have to migrate. So then the question is, how can they help initiate the program that will get the United Nations to tell the emitting countries like the United States, you have a responsibility to help these people leave their homes and find another home. Or in a place like Africa, how can a program be put together for Mercy to Earth Weekend that would bring people together either in a parish or in a community of multi-parishes to address the question of how can we begin to work together on an adaptation program in our area with other people who are also affected in our area. So, but going back to what we're doing here, so we, after we had the launch, and a lot of people signed up and they said they wanted to have their parishes go green, or they wanted to help with the larger program of getting the power that's distributed in our 3 counties to be more renewable. Because right now, our power company gives us about 28% renewable energy. And with this new program called Community Choice Energy, which is a law that we have in California, this law exists in 7 states in the United States, but it's spreading like wildfire in California. The people organizing to create community choice energy agencies that are nonprofit, public-run agencies that will order our energy, and then our energy company, Pacific Gas and Electric, they distribute it, but they no longer order it. So they're giving us right now 27% renewables in the energy that PG&E has been ordering. When our community choice energy takes over, the very first year we will have 60% renewable energy, and then the next year it could go to 70, and the next 85%. And the goal is to get to as high a level of renewable energy through our normal power delivery system as we possibly can. And
Sarah, thank you. I mean, I'm sorry to cut you off. It's so, you have done so much inspiring stuff, and I'm hoping we can put some of this on our website, but I'm hoping we also have to have some time for Jason. So I invite you, if you can wrap it up.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, you have so much to offer, but just to honor the time.
I will tie this up. So what I would recommend for the Mercy to Weekend, Mercy to Earth Weekend, is in your area, either in your parish or in your community, find your allies right away who want to work with you on this, and create a public education event, either at your parish or with a group of parishes together, and show the best film or video that you can on the problem, and then show some examples of solutions to begin the process of people understanding that we have to work together, and there are solutions that we can work on. And if we form green teams and begin the process of meeting and taking action, we can do it. And the Leonardo DiCaprio film called Before the Deluge is probably the most important one. It has Pope Francis in it that will show the problem. And then we have videos. We have one on our website already, but we're developing another one. The Catholic Climate Covenant has, and GCCM we have webinars. I would suggest that you choose some of those pieces to show as the solution, and to show about Laudato Si, and make it an educational event out of which will come commitments from people to do ongoing work together in the parish or community.
Wonderful. I think we have to do a whole webinar about what you all are doing in Monterey at some point to showcase just as concrete examples. But thank you so much, Sarah, for being here and for sharing your insight and wisdom.
Thank you.
So from what Sarah shared, you can hear there's so many ways that you can bring mercy to earth, and some very small steps that can lead to bigger changes that we can all take. And so what I want to do now is to invite Jason Miller from the Franciscan Action Network to share, and Jason has been helping to coordinate the People's Climate March in Washington, D.C. And so we invited him because we're really pushing Catholics to join this mobilization as well as other mobilizations, knowing that we need to have policies shift in order to help us to transition and to get off of fossil fuels. So Jason, I invite you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Christina. I want to thank everyone for allowing me to spend a few minutes on the People's Climate March. Perhaps some of you were in New York in September 2014, and that was a great event with so many people from all over the country and all over the world. So we're hopeful that we can do that again here in DC on April 29th. There's multiple ways to get involved. I realize that the Global Catholic Climate Movement and folks on this call are truly global, and that's awesome. And that's what makes all of our work and all of our collaboration great. But if you are able to get to DC, if you're anywhere along the East Coast, we hope that you can join us. There'll be carpools and buses, and all that information can be
Jason, we're missing sound, I think. I don't know what happened. No, we can't hear you. It's strange. It just started to cut off. Can anybody else hear Jason? No, I'm seeing in that we lost sound.
The last thing I heard him say was that there will be buses. There will be buses.
Yeah. Let's see. So hopefully, Jason, we can get your sound back on, but just to mention that with the Franciscan Action Network and GCCM and also the Catholic Climate Covenant, we've organized several events around the People's Climate March in Washington, D.C., including a training the Friday before on how to advocate and how to lobby. And there's also some lobby days scheduled. And so if you're interested in participating or even to in the DC events, that would be great, as well as we're looking for people who are willing to serve as Catholic leads for some of the sister marches. So there's marches popping up around the country like Durham or California or Oregon, and it would be great if there's people, Catholics, who are saying, hey, if there's other Catholics out there, let's march together. We'll identify a gathering point, and we can pray with our feet and maybe also pray right before the march. So when I'm in the follow-up email, I'll be sending through the website where you can sign up to participate in the march and to stay in touch. There's a bi-weekly call specifically around the People's Climate March that you're welcome to join to help in the planning, but also to get updates. So I'm sorry that I don't know what happened with the microphone. Maybe he'll be able to jump on in a little bit. But it's really important. Oh, let's see. Looks like he's trying to get on. And while we're still waiting for Jason to jump on, the other resources I wanted to show you regarding Mercy to Earth Weekend are, we've developed on our website, if you can see this, a campaign guide, which offers some guidance on what you can do. We have some of the things that we shared today about Lent. It's a time of action, and then suggestions of things to do. It kind of broadens out the 5 acts of mercy that I talked about earlier with some resources. And then we also have 10 steps to plan your Mercy to Earth event. So those are also there in terms of ways that you can get going. And then on our resource page, we also have several resources that you can use, and we're going to be adding to here. We have an examine, and then we have parish materials like a sample letter you can give to your pastor to talk about Mercy to Earth, sample bulletin announcements, and then campaign posters, including a make your own poster, so that, and I'm going to just show this to you, that you can download, and then you can, it might not show up, that you can download, and then also, here we go, and you can add your own text to it. So we have these resources, and we're going to be adding more as the weeks go by. And so to make sure that you have all the information about Mercy to Earth Weekend, we invite you to make sure to register on the website. And at the top, you can see you can register so that you get updates on a regular basis. So, Jason, do we have you for the last? No. So at this point, I wanted to open it up to, I know we only have about 5 minutes, and if we don't get to all of the questions, I still invite you to put them in, and what I'll do is I'll share them with our panelists, and they can respond to you perhaps on email as they're able. And yes, there's a question about this webinar is being recorded, and we can also share the slides after. But any other questions? So let's see. Tom, let's see, can I unmute your phone? All right, Jason? We can hear you, yes, great.
Great. Perfect. Sorry about that, everybody.
No problem.
The old technology here. So Christina did a good job of pinch hitting there to fill us in about.
Uh-oh, did we lose him again? Jason, we lost your sound again. I don't know what it is. Well, perhaps, here, let's see. Do you want to try again? No, we still can't hear you. Zoom is not working for you today. I don't know what it is. Sorry. Well, I'm sure that Jason and Fan will be available if you have any other questions about how to get engaged with the People's Climate March. But we do want to make sure we have a big contingent of Catholics out there to show, again, as Sarah mentioned, kind of the moral dimension of this issue. So one of the questions that I know that was posed at the beginning was for Sarah. And the question is, how large is a certain significant percentage of people who should act locally?
Hello, am I back in? Yeah, okay. All right. I'm not sure if I'm visual, but you can hear my sound. It can start as small as 2 or 3 people in a parish working to educate the parish and working to green the parish with efficiency audits and then going solar. We have all the information on how to do this. And it can be a group of parishes working together or a group of churches and parishes working together in an area. This in itself will begin to reach ripples and larger and larger numbers of people and affect larger and larger numbers of people's lifestyles and the greening of their churches, etc. The same thing is true of the whole world. So I keep saying 10%. The 10% of all the people in motion acting is going to affect a lot more than 10% of the people in terms of what actually happens. And we just have to proceed with faith and get up every morning and do what it is we have to do to participate in turning this thing around and making Laudato Si real.
Great. And Sarah, another question for you was, because I think people were really inspired with the process that you went through, are some of the resources, like the letter from your bishop Sunset Launch Day, or could those be made available so that people in other dioceses might be able to kind of see it?
Yes, we can, and we also have people that can talk with people and work through with them some ideas about what they might do, because it could be different in different places than what we're doing, but we're prepared to explore with people how it could be different where they are and what else they might do.
Great.
So if they contact the Romero Institute, which is romeroinstitute.org, they can email us at info@romeroinstitute.org, and we will help them.
Great. So we'll be sharing, I know some people want to hear more about what you've done, and so we'll include your website and contact information in the follow-up email. And then I think we'll also include it on our Mercy to Earth resources, because it's a really great resource. So I'm conscious of the time. I'm sorry it didn't work with Jason at FAN, but I trust you'll be able to contact him if you need to. So just my last comment is that for the Mercy to Earth weekend, we really invite you to register what your act of mercy is for our common home. Part of what we try to do with the Global Catholic Climate Movement is to showcase inspiring stories like Sarah's, like what FAN is doing and the Mercy Sisters, as well as to show that the Catholic Church is moving and acting. So it's important if you can register, what are you planning to do? And then also, if you are going to do a public event like a workshop or a prayer service that you want to invite people to, we also invite you to register that through the form that is going to be made available on our website and through email, so that we can put your event on the map like we've done in other events, and people can find you. And that's the same if you plan to be a Catholic lead or Catholic contact for one of the mobilizations, that if you're willing to kind of be a point person where other Catholics can join you in marching for the March for Science or for one of the global divestment marches. So with that, I apologize that we didn't have as much time for questions and answers, but what we'll do is we'll share the contact information of the panelists, if they're willing, in the follow-up email, and then you can ask them directly. As I think you know, they're very willing to kind of share what they know. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and close. Denise, could you close us in the prayer? Maybe you can just read it, and we can end like that. So thank you again for joining us for this time, and we'll look forward to hearing how all of you bring mercy to earth in the coming weeks.
Thank you very much, Christina and Sarah and John and all those who participated. And summing up, let us pray in the abridged words of Pope Francis. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth. God of love, show us our place in this world as channels of your love for all the creatures of this earth. God of mercy, may we receive your forgiveness and mercy throughout our common home. Praise be to you. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. We'll look forward to being in touch. God bless.
Thanks, Christina.
Mm-hmm.